Hello, hello. It's Andrew from Exo Capital, and today we are preparing for liftoff. So, a quick update on the flip fund. We've soft circled 650 so far, and I'm totally blown away by the support and feel really grateful that a few of you are going to come along for this ride with us. If you're interested in investing and are accredited, you can check out our deck. It's really, really simple. You should be able to get through it in about 5 minutes and understand, hopefully, on this first slide exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to buy one SaaS company raising between $500,000 to $1 million. We're trying to double revenue and sell it in 12 to 24 months, hence the name Flip Fund. There's no fees. We're doing a standard 20% carry, and you can kind of go through our history. And there's quite a few questions that we've gone through and answered in the deck, and that's about it. Of course, 650 soft circle doesn't mean much until people actually write checks, but so far it's been lovely chatting with a few of you and getting to know you. We're doing this under a 506c offering, so if you know your legal stuff and are wondering how the heck I'm able to talk about this stuff publicly, we are doing this again under 506c. So we are allowed to generally solicit investment provided that everyone in the Flip Fund is an accredited investor. So you will have to verify that you are an accredited investor before being able to invest, but in a week or two, we should be all set to start taking in some cash. We're literally just waiting on an EIN number from the government. We put together a very, very simple LLC operating agreement and subscription agreement. It's literally as simple as you could possibly do. It's only a few pages long. It's written in plain English. It's 5 pages in total, including the subscription agreement. I have never seen docs this concise and this human readable, and it's really lovely to be able to just quickly scan through and be like, okay, I understand 100% exactly what this operating agreement means. I don't know if you've ever read through like a normal kind of standard Stripe Atlas operating agreement, but it's pretty dense, it's pretty long, and pretty confusing. Whereas this, I think, hopefully is incredibly transparent and anybody can make sense of exactly what's going on in here. That's available in this link here. So a year ago, I would often walk around the streets of Santa Monica wondering how the heck people raise discretionary capital. I didn't come from the private equity world. I still don't. I don't even consider what Exo does as real private equity. It's still too small, frankly, to be considered what I would say is traditional private equity. But I wondered how the heck people raise discretionary capital. You hear about these big funds, and it turns out that they had some connection to some kind of money, and a few people, like 3 or 4 people, knew them, and they raised a $50 million fund. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not the path I'm going to be able to take. And it turns out my formula was this, and this, of course, I don't mean to be celebrating a little early, but roughly the trajectory is looking good. Turns out the formula for me was write a blog post every week for 3 years, gather a list of people who find what you're doing interesting, do 10 deals, nearly bankrupting yourself to prove out the model with your own cash first, and then, only then, can you raise a tiny amount of discretionary capital to do one company. I'm sure there's an easier way. At some point, I'm sure we'll move upstream and be able to take a little bit of money from family offices, etc. But for now, this is pretty solid, and I'm pretty stoked and excited for Flip Fund 1. We've also started identifying some targets, so yeah, the quicker we can close, the more likely these initial ones that we're chatting with won't be scooped up by the time we actually have the capital to go deploy this. A little portfolio progress. Most of the focus has been on Growth Bar. We're making incremental progress elsewhere, but these are kind of some of the most interesting experiments of the week. We removed forced credit card payments. So when you signed up to Growth Bar in the past, you had to put your credit card in, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, if you didn't cancel, they would auto charge you a full annual subscription, and it was super aggressive. And I'm sure, maybe a few got through where people said, okay, fine, yeah, I'll try this tool for a year, no big deal. But there was a ton of disputes in Stripe. People really did not like this. We have like 30 grand sitting in Stripe jail because of all of the chargebacks and refunds and disputes. And so it turns out Stripe really, really doesn't like this. And it makes the MRR numbers in Stripe look really wonky too. It's wildly, wildly inaccurate. Like when we log in, it says 30 some odd thousand in recurring revenue, which is not the case. Certainly not the case in terms of cash collected. It's way off. So we removed the requirement to put in a credit card before a 2-week free trial. And unsurprisingly, signups have doubled on average so far. It hasn't been very long. and we're not past the initial 2-week waiting period where people, sign up and then they wait their 2 weeks and we see what kind of conversion numbers come out of that. But my guess is it's going to be somewhat better. And generally speaking, it's just a better experience for the consumer to have a free trial. They don't have to put their credit card in. And if they like the tool, they get value out of it for the first 2 weeks, then they pay. It's like a very kind of normal standard process, and we'll give this a shot. If we're wrong, we'll revert it. But if we revert it back to a credit card to sign up, I think the 2-week trial will revert to like a monthly subscription instead of an annual. And hopefully that will alleviate some people's surprises, or at least their eyebrows, when they see a bill for like $1,000 for some tool they tried like 2 weeks ago and forgot about. There was another kind of interesting part of this equation too, where the previous owners had excluded all of India from being able to sign up and use the tool. And I've seen a lot of other people do this. The reason is there's just a ton of abuse. People sign up and will go to great distances to save $1 or $2. And people will sign up with multiple accounts, even though you can't really get very far in the tool or get like a meaningful end-to-end blog post on the free trial. You just kind of get a taste of what the tool can do and maybe like 3/4 of a blog post or maybe one short one. But we'll start to track and see what kind of abuse is going on. I'm sure that there will be an increase in it, but something we'll be monitoring. But ideally, the net is a positive, that users are happier to sign up and give the tool a try, and more people end up converting because they like the tool, as opposed to, well, they paid for a year, so they might as well use it. We're also trying to recreate or relaunch a writing marketplace that the previous owners had tried and gotten some traction with previously. It's really cool to buy a SaaS company when you're a service business. So you have an existing service business, you buy a complementary SaaS company. That is a very well-worn path. What isn't talked about as much is if you have a SaaS company, bolting on a service to really increase revenue. Service revenue is somewhat more labor intensive, somewhat lower margins. But for us, the color of money is all green. And if there is demand for a marketplace like this, then we will happily meet that demand. So I love an experiment like this where we can essentially create a form, very light on engineering, and have a meaningful positive impact on revenue just by being a broker between ourselves and some content writers. And thankfully, we already have a great partner that we use to, they write our articles, and so we're going to be using them to test out this marketplace idea. We did take an L this week on Support Guy. We did a product hunt launch. Support Guy is a way to kind of upload all of your support documents, and then you can kind of chat with them. It's sort of a variant of like the being able to upload like a PDF and chat with your PDF and all those tools. But we launched a Slack bot, so it's pretty cool if you uploaded all your HR info, for example. You could have an HR Slack bot, and your employees could just chat with the Slack bot in Slack and not have to email your head of HR or your head of people. That's the idea. But we did the product on launch and we got 0 new paying customers. So a little bit of work there on product market fit. Looks like we haven't quite hit it yet, but we bought this particular tool knowing that we were going to have to find that ourselves, even though that's generally not something we sign up for. Random note, I've been really into this book, 10x is easier than 2x, which is super ironic given that our mission for the Flip Fund is literally to try and go 2x and not intentionally go 10x. But they have this really cool concept called the gap versus the gain. The gap is when you're sort of measuring progress against some ideal, and it ends up like being, you move the goalpost on yourself and you never sort of feel satisfied when you reach your goals, versus measuring against the gain, where basically you measure against your past, your previous progress. So it's not so much have you reached your ideal state yet. It's sort of like a year ago, where were you? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. And measuring your progress in that way has just been a total 180 for me in terms of measuring my progress and kind of feeling good about where I am, as opposed to always sort of pushing up against this ideal and this state that I want to, in particular, get XO to. It's such a compelling thing that I ended up building a Slack bot using OpenAI to ping me every day to record my 3 wins from the previous day. And it's stupid, but it's lovely getting a text message that says like, oh, what were your wins from yesterday? And I don't have to remember to go into Notion or wherever I write. I usually have just a Google Doc that I write in every day. But this is nice, and to be able to record it and then have this system maybe eventually kind of like play those back, or do like a weekly play-by-play or like a monthly recap in terms of like how much progress I've made, is just kind of a cool concept. So that's it. Stay tuned for updates on the Flip Fund. I hope that the next episode will be me saying that we're ready to start taking in cash. Take care.